As a history student, hearing the motion made me want to drop out of the competition. But I'm here thanks to the promise of free food, friends, and most importantly, drink. I'm ready also to take on the pessimists of opposition. Tonight, I'm going to talk mainly about the only thing that I know, the past. And then I'll talk about how we can use it to understand the future. Firstly, the past. Being a history student with absolutely no life, I spent a lot of time in the library reading about the past. I decided to put this to use, and I have 3 examples of when fearing the future simply was not worth it. Let's look back over the last 100 years. There was a time when space travel was simply an idea, yet no doubt people feared it because it was the future and it was the unknown. Society could not comprehend the positives and instead just focused on what could go wrong, as opposition seemed to continue to do all tonight. Moving through time, with each new development, there was greater risks presented, as today there are greater risks being presented to us. When the first expedition to the moon went underway, people feared what would be found, or worse, what would find us. Yet, look at what has happened. We have come on leaps and bounds. The moral of this story is that people got more and more worried with each small step for man, and indeed more scared with each giant leap for mankind. This fear can stop us from developing and moving with the times, and it limits our ability to look towards the future with hope. The next example that I would like to talk about is equality. I'm not going to pretend that the world is perfect currently, although we do have the fill. If we examine the past, we can see easily that there have been improvements. Using the racism facing African Americans as an example, we can see these improvements. Until the 1860s, the slave trade was rampant. Fast forward through the years, and we have the Emancipation Proclamation, the Civil Rights Campaign, Beyonce. In 1943, Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on the bus. This is roughly 100 years after the slave trade was at its peak in the United States. There has been an African American president in the US, which shows that things have improved since 100 years previous.
Point.
Yeah.
Given how much people suffered within those times, do you really think if you asked them if it was better 100 years previous, would they actually say yes, given how much they were suffering in that moment?
Thank you for your point. At the time they were suffering, and at the time we might be suffering as well. However, if we go 100 years into the future and look back at the advancements that have made, that far outweighs the suffering at that time. Like the positives that came out of the results were so much better for the entire African American community. It's kind of sometimes we have to go through suffering to get to the end and to be able to succeed in the end. So the third example that I have is about technology. With the development of the internet or mobile phones, people were scared as they didn't know what it could do or what it would mean for the future. But look at what has happened. Technological advancements are great. We can stay connected with friends through online texting, if you actually have friends. We have social media platforms to broadcast what we are doing to the world, if you actually do something interesting with your life. But seriously, we are living in an age where interconnectivity and communication has never been better. Widespread paranoia and fear occurred with the turning of the millennium. The problem is commonly known as the Y2K problem. People were petrified as they thought all of the computers would fail. Most programs represented they would represent the 4-digit years with only the final 2 years, which would basically make the year 2000 indistinguishable from the year 1900. Yet, this fear of technology is completely irrational, as we tend to forget that we control the technology that we make. A human has to have made the software in the first place, and continuously forget that. We can control them. We can just simply turn them off. And we're able to modify it. People simply resolved the issues, and there were hardly any computer failures when the year 2000 actually came. There was no need to be afraid of the turning of the millennium, because clearly the world became a better place in 2000 because I was born. So the second thing I'd like to talk about is how we can use history to know that the world will be a better place in 100 years. So when we compare the world to what it was previously, it is undeniable that it is a better place. Every small milestone has made an improvement for someone, somewhere. We cannot fear advancement or progress. We must be optimistic about the future and try to enact change where we see necessary. And this is being done internationally, in small ways, but they're effective in the long term. There's social movements, rallies, protests, like constantly at this time. If we remain hopeful, changes will be made, because ultimately the people have the power. When looking at the world in 100 years, in retrospect, the problems that we face today will have been made history.
Point.
Yeah.
Given the past, they had incentives to make these changes, but now they don't because they think that they've lost hope and that climate change is likely to get them. Why are people still going to cause these changes for 100 years' time?
Thank you. Because people tend to panic when they see that there might be no other possible ending. So once they see that the situation has become so dire, they'll suddenly have this panic inside them and decide that they really need to make a change. And unfortunately, that's just the way that people are. So if we consider, students will learn about how to overcome these issues like in history classes in the future, because at the time they might have been a problem, but over time we realize that they become lessons for the future to learn. If we consider the possibilities for the future, it seems that the only logical thing to conclude is that the world will have changed for the better in some shape or form. Every single problem will not have been eradicated, but there will be definite progress. Who knows what could happen in the future? Perhaps we will have solved climate change. Maybe world peace will be achieved. Hopefully, I will be a step closer to have made some friends. Okay. If the past is anything to learn from, and I am a fervent believer that it is, I'm definite that the world will be a better place in 100 years. So don't worry, be happy.